Hello, today I'm back with a ranking. This time I'll be doing a re-ranking for the band 3 Days Grace. And I believe I did a ranking for this band like around 3 or 4 years ago or so, except with that video, I ranked their albums and also Breaking Benjamin's albums. I did both bands in one video. But yeah, today I decided to re-rank their albums. 3 Days Grace was one of the first few bands that I ever got into, a band that I'll always have a soft spot for. I mean, when I first became a fan, I believe Life Starts Now was their most recent album, which kind of makes me feel a little bit old. But either way, still love this band all these years later. I've seen them live twice, and I got to meet the band both of those times too, and definitely enjoyed all those experiences. And in that same year, I also got to meet Adam Gontier for doing VIP for Saint Asonia. All that in 1 year, definitely really awesome. But let's go ahead and dive into this ranking. We'll be going from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. But at the bottom, I'm probably gonna have to go with their 2018 album, Outsider. A decent album. I'd say a good album, but I wouldn't say great or amazing. For me, nowadays, probably their weakest, but there is still some quality stuff on here, though. Still some pretty good songs on here, like Right, Left, Wrong, and The Mountain. Infrared is probably my favorite song on the album, and probably one of my favorite songs when it comes to this current era of 3 Days of Grace. You move towards the second half, I do like The New Real, one of the more underrated songs on the album. Villain I'm Not's also pretty good. With Love Me or Leave Me, that's one of the more different sounding songs on the album, and I do like that song. Maybe not one of my personal favorites, but still, I do kind of like that song. And I also dig the scream from Matt towards the end of The Abyss. That was definitely pretty cool. But yeah, Outsider, solid album, but for me, probably at the bottom nowadays. But next we'll be moving to their latest album, Explosions. And when this album first came out, I felt kind of underwhelmed by it, but there are some songs on this album that have definitely grown on me over time, though. Some of those songs being No Tomorrow and Lifetime. I remember when Lifetime first came out, I wasn't too big on it. I thought it was just alright, but it didn't quite click with me or didn't really stick with me. But nowadays, I definitely like it much more now. But some of my favorites on here, So-Called Life, which was of course the lead-off single. Definitely one of my favorites. I especially dig the heavy riffs in that song. I'm the Weapon, to me, is another solid anthem for the band too. Move towards the second half, I do like Champion. Chain of Abuse is also pretty good. And I'm not big on everything on here. Someone to Talk To featuring Apocalyptica. That's a song that's never really done a whole lot for me, but not terrible, but always been one of my least favorites on the album. Another song I do want to mention is A Scar Is Born. That's probably one of my favorite songs on the album, and probably one of my favorites when it comes to this current Matt Walsh era of 3 Days Grace. But yeah, Explosions, good album. Not one of their best, but still solid, I'd say. But now we're moving to the first album with Matt, Human. Man, I remember when this album first came out. I remember seeing so many mixed reviews, opinions from fans, critics, and all that. And I really dug the album when it first came out. I mean, of course, the first single was Painkiller, which came out a year before this album, if I remember correctly, 2014. And I was really into that song when it came out. But yeah, when the album came out, I was actually really into it. And there's some songs on the album that I still enjoy to this day. I mean, I still do like Human Race. Maybe a tad repetitive, which I know is an issue for some people, but personally, I like Human Race. Solid way to open up the album. Painkiller, I think, is another solid anthem for the band, and definitely one of the best anthems when it comes to this current era. Fallen Angel is easily one of my favorites on the album, and probably has some of Matt's best vocals on the album, I'd say. You move towards the deeper cuts. I really like So What. Nothing's Fair in Love and War, I think, is one of their most underrated songs, if I'm being honest. Definitely a song that feels somewhat kind of slept on. I Am Machine is another solid banger for them. I believe they performed that song when I saw them the second time, if I remember correctly. And I think The Real You is a decent ballad. But yeah, Human, good album. And actually still probably my favorite of the Matt Walsh era. I'm definitely curious of what people will say about that. I'm not really quite sure what other people think is the best of the Matt Walsh era, but for me, as of now, if I were to think about like front to back listens, Human's probably my favorite of the Matt Walsh albums. But let's go ahead and move on to the next album, Transit of Venus. Got it signed by Adam when I did VIP for Saint Asonia. Yeah, the final album with Adam, and I remember when this album came out, I remember the critics were more positive towards it than the fans. When it came to the fans, I remember the reception being a bit more mixed. Some people were digging the more different direction on this album, while others were not really feeling it, such as the electronic influence here that you would hear here and there throughout the album, such as in songs like Chalk Outline. Chalk Outline, if I remember correctly, was the lead-off single, and I still think one of the best songs on the album. But you move towards the second half where you get some of the more lesser-known songs. I really like Expectations. That's definitely probably one of my favorites on the album. And I think you get some solid vocal work from Adam too, such as in songs like Give Me a Reason, which, if I remember correctly, is a fairly personal song for him. I also like Misery Loves My Company, another solid anthem for the band. I also like Anonymous, one of the more underrated deep cuts, and probably another one of my favorites on the album. High Road's another really good song, definitely another highlight, especially Adam's vocals in that song. But yeah, all around, pretty good album from 3 Days Grace. And honestly, I'd say a tad kind of underrated, if I'm being honest. But next we'll be moving to their third album, Life Starts Now, which I also got signed by Adam. And yeah, this is an album that I definitely have a large soft spot for, really for the first 3 albums especially. But this album, I listened to this album a lot when I was younger, and I still dig this album to this day. Something you notice about this album compared to 1X and the self-titled is that this album doesn't sound as dark. This album, I guess you could maybe say, sounds a bit brighter, however you want to put it. But yeah, you get some really strong songs on this album, like Break, which is a pretty good single for them. World So Cold is great too, and also sounds great live too, I'd say. The Good Life is definitely a banger. And you move towards the deeper cuts, I think this album has some of the band's best deep cuts, such as songs like Someone Who Cares and No More, which you just can't beat the melody that you get in No More, and Adam's vocals in that song too. To me, No More has some of Adam's best vocal performances on the album. Title track's also really good. I mean, probably one of their best album closers, I'd say. But yeah, and then you also have the album opener, Bitter Taste, which is, I don't know, probably a contender for maybe being my favorite album opener from the band. It's either going to be that one or It's All Over for me, but yeah, still love this album to this day, and definitely probably one of my favorite albums of 2009 in general, if I'm being honest. But next we're moving to their debut album, self-titled. So yeah, I got Adam to sign both of these. This is a promo sampler CD, which I've either got from eBay or Discogs. But anyways, this is another album that I played to death when I was younger. I mean, from front to back, I played the hell out of this album, and I still can't get enough of this album to this day. I mean, and probably one of the best debut albums of the 2000s, in my opinion, when it comes to the world of rock, post-grunge, however you want to put it. But yeah, you get some of the band's best known songs or most well-known songs on here, like Just Like You, I Hate Everything About You, of course, and Home, which with how much those songs have been played, especially I Hate Everything About You, I still enjoy those songs to this day. I mean, I never get tired of those songs, but I think this album also has some really good deep cuts and some of the band's best deep cuts, in my opinion, such as songs like Drown, which has always been one of my personal favorites on the album. I also like Overrated. That's probably a contender for maybe being my favorite album closer from the band. It's probably either that one or maybe Life Starts Now. It's probably going to be one of those two for me at the moment. But you have other really great songs like Take Me Under, which probably has some of my favorite vocal work from Adam on the album. Scared is also really good. I also like Let You Down, especially musically. But yeah, absolutely love this album. This is an album that you can definitely enjoy from front to back. This probably a no-skip album, I'd say, which I'd also say the same thing for Life Starts Now. And my number one album for this band, and that album is, of course, 1X. Also got it signed by Adam through doing VIP for Saint Asonia. Yeah, it's one of my favorite albums of all time. I'll go ahead and say it. I mean, again, another album that you can listen to from front to back with no issue. Of course, like with any album you listen to, there are songs that are stronger than others, or maybe that stand out more to you compared to some other songs, but I absolutely love this album. I mean, banger after banger, especially in the first half with songs like Pain, Animal I Have Become, and Riot. It's All Over. Again, one of their best album openers. Absolutely love that song. Probably one of my favorite 3 Days Grace songs in general. On My Own, I think, is one of their most underrated songs. Love that song too. Get Out Alive is also really good. Definitely another standout. And you also have Time of Dying, which is one of the fan favorites off the album, and for good reason. Definitely one of my favorites, especially when it comes to the second half of the album. Gone Forever is also pretty good. I dig Adam's vocal performance in that song too, but yeah. All around, to me, I'd say maybe a perfect album, a perfect 10 out of 10 album. And to me, 3 Days Grace is best, but that is my ranking. Let me know your ranking of this band in the comments section below and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.